James Ernest of the Grueling Truth, here with author Roland Lazenby, author of the new book Showboat, about the life and times of Kobe Bryant. So tell us, what inspired you to start writing?
Well, James, my old man was a basketball player. I played football and even played a little college football, but he and his brothers back in the 1930s were the set shooting guards in the hills of southern West Virginia. Sort of a Kentucky-like story in some ways. And his older brother was all-state. They got college scholarships, but washed out of those for one reason or another. And so my father ended up playing in the industrial leagues, even got to play against the original Celtics. And I had always enjoyed basketball, playing pickup. But my father got ill in 1980, and it's funny how I really started playing a lot of basketball, and I ended up writing basketball books in the wake of that, and I've coached basketball for quite a while. And, I really didn't think about this until I was doing my book, Michael Jordan, The Life, which is much about the influence in even the subtle things that parents have on children and on their long-term behavior, on their drive and those things. When it suddenly occurred to me why I was doing these basketball books, it was sort of in response to my old man.
Nice. So just, his influence ended up showing up in the books and all, which is great, that, carrying on his legacy and tradition. So in the Michael Jordan book, was it about how Michael Jordan's dad influenced him, or was it about how Michael Jordan influenced his son?
It was more about Michael Jordan had a brother that was 11 months older. He had two brothers, but one 11 months older, and his father disapproved of Michael. And that fatherly disapproval ignited something in Michael, and he and his brother had furious battles, one-on-one, and his older brother was much stronger. He wasn't as tall as Michael. When they were like 10, 11, 12 years old, father built a court in the backyard for them, and those battles really just sort of ignited Michael until eventually he defeated his brother. But those one-on-one battles, you start digging around in a lot of basketball stories, you're going to find things like that. Not to the degree, probably, in the power. Of course, at some point, Michael's father became completely taken with Michael. But that didn't matter. The die was already cast.
So in the new book, why is it called Showboat?
Well, Kobe's own father was Joe Jellybean Bryant, a showboat player, a very flashy guy who played almost a 6'10" guard forward center who played for the Philadelphia 76ers in the days of the bomb squad. And Joe played 8 years, Jellybean played 8 years, and then played 8 years in Italy. And so the whole tradition, really, both with Michael and with Kobe Bryant, sort of fell in line with a lot of that showboat tradition. They're tremendous showmen, but when Kobe was paid, he was the first big bonus high school player. Adidas paid him millions upon millions to turn pro right out of high school because Sonny Vaccaro, who had been at Nike, had been fired by Nike, went to Adidas and wanted to steal the next Michael Jordan from Nike, and wanted to steal it also from the NCAA. And so he went in search of this player to turn pro, and Kobe, for a variety of reasons, his family badly needed the money, became that guy once Vaccaro sort of discovered him. And so Shaquille O'Neal, all these Laker veterans were there when this Kobe was really the first boy among men who had this huge endorsement contract. Mm-hmm. But more than that, he put all this pressure on the Lakers veterans training and practice and doing all this stuff. And Shaquille O'Neal, the derisive nickname he came up with for Kobe was Showboat. And so it's sort of a theme because everywhere I turned, this book is sort of an effort to find the organic Kobe. And everywhere I turned, AAU coaches, whatever, who coached him or dealt with him, so many of them said, "What a showman! What a guy determined to be very flashy as a player."
How do you feel the NBA has changed from, the original book with Jerry West all the way to now with Kobe Bryant?
Well, the NBA today, of course, is very young, unlike it was when Kobe came into the league. And, that's when I first got to know Kobe. He was a very lonely kid and very frustrated trying to fit in. He was a guy who actually wanted to go to college, but ended up going into the NBA and had quite a difficult adjustment because of the difference between himself and his teammates. But the league, in addition to age, of course, the league changed dramatically in 2005 when the NBA got rid of so much of its interpretation of defensive rules. No longer was hand checking allowed, particularly on the perimeter. Post players could still be very physical, but there was, when I was coaching at the time, it was common practice to run bump the cutter drills, where if somebody's cutting through the lane, it's almost like a football linebacker. You bump the cutter to knock him off stride. And all of those kinds of things were removed from the game. And it's why we see and have seen in recent years NBA championship series that look almost like all-star games, because the guards are allowed to almost drive at will. And we first saw it in the 2005, 2006, those NBA Finals periods there, when the Dallas Mavericks were ahead in the series, but they started getting all these hand check fouls against Dwayne Wade. It was blinding fast anyway, and that changed the game. And we've seen it change, and I wrote an article then called "The Death of Defense." And of course, I don't think it completely expired. We are starting to see now, as my great friend Tex Winter, the coach, said, we would eventually see an adjustment. He was very much against those rules changes then. But it has taken time, but we are starting to see some high-quality defense here and there. It's not everywhere in the league, and you still have plenty of nights where you're going to have sort of an all-star game moment where it's way too easy in terms of layups and other things. But, that is the game, and I think that the NBA has made billions from those changes because fans love seeing offense. And so I'm not sure it'll ever go back. It may, but I think it's going to be, I think we're headed in a new direction.
I agree with you. I mean, that's what it seems to be, is the thing to get the ratings, to reduce the role of the defensive teams. I know there for college in a while, I mean, it seemed the scores were getting so darn low. Even in the pros, they were getting it seemed like, the 80s or so, 90s, and fans want to see a 100-point game.
You were exactly right. There is no question the thuggery had gotten out of control. And yes, Michael Jordan built up all his strength, and he was able to do what he did despite it. But it really shut down players who could be good and made them often just average. And it really limited scores. People gave Phil Jackson a lot of grief a few years back for comparing Stephen Curry to Chris Jackson. But, of course, Chris Jackson was this dynamic offensive player who played in the age of hand checks, and he simply wasn't physical enough to become an MVP or to dominate. He could have brilliant games, but, a player like that, and I think if we had those hand-checking rules today, I don't think Steph Curry would be able to rule the way he does. floor the way he has it. And so the irony is, of course, the Warriors are a very fine defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
And but one of the problems has been that there are a lot of young teams, a lot of very bad teams trying to play the way the Warriors do. There are just not too many teams with that skill level. We are starting to see in Houston a really powerful team offensively. The question always remains with Mike D'Antoni is how good will they be defensively? And they're one of these teams that's showing pretty fine defensive improvement.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, that's what it all comes down to when you get into the postseason is defensive acumen. I mean, if they can't stop the other team, it doesn't matter how much you can score once it comes to that postseason.
It doesn't. And you know, when I was spending so much time with the Bulls and then the Lakers, Tex Winter and Phil Jackson, the coaching staff, they just sort of snickered at D'Antoni's teams that were getting, especially during the Lakers years, when Phil and Tex were in LA, you know, the 7 seconds or less and all the big noise about Phoenix. And they always said those guys are just never they're okay in the regular season, but they're just never prepared to seize the agenda and win a championship. They just don't play well enough defensively.
Who had a bigger influence on the other, Kobe or Shaq?
Well, that's a great question. I've done lots and lots of interviews over the years. I would say Shaq had a bigger influence on Kobe in this regard. And I think it's the influence that big men always had in the old way the game was played. One of the things about the new way the game is played, both good and bad, is that you no longer have bigs camped out down on the block. And I remember when interviewing George Mikan and Jim Pollard, the great Lakers stars that won 6 championships, and they fought like hell because Mikan would never come off the block, and Pollard was this great multi-dimensional forward who, you know, could drive and take people off the dribble, and they were just always at each other's throats. Elgin Baylor, the great driving guard, once Wilt came to the Lakers, it was a terrible fit. And of course, Kobe had to deal with that with Shaq. Tex Winter in our conversations said several times, you know, I wonder what would have happened with Michael if he had had to deal with a massive and successful center like Shaq as a young player. How would that collision have worked out? And so these are not new conflicts to basketball. The new age of basketball, the big men are often mostly on the perimeter, and if they're you know, D'Antoni, in my interviews with him, he's against the post game. He says most of the post game is not well taught anymore. It's not well executed, and the better shot by far is the 3-pointer. Now that a lot of the people are able to shoot above 40% on threes. As a result, a lot of those conflicts between big men and guards and wings, excuse me, are not as prevalent. The bigs, as you well know, start the offense on the perimeter in a screen and roll, or a pick and pop, as they call today. You have people stretching the floor and opening the floor, and some of that is pretty fascinating. And I think we are seeing, obviously, there are the remnants of post play. We still see players able to operate and execute on the post, but the game has opened and the floor has extended a lot for the offense. And wherever they're able to really execute well, you know, it can be pretty interesting. It's just not there yet.
Exactly. I mean, the good old days with Karl Malone and John Stockton and all with the pick and roll, it just doesn't seem like it's there anymore.
Right. You know, there's tremendous pick and roll today, but it's still a very different game. And of course, they were they were able to do what they did in that age of very physical basketball. And no one perhaps was more physical in ways than Karl Malone. And yet they brought a tremendous ability to execute. And, these offenses like all the split cuts and all the things that Utah did back in the day, and the Bulls and the Lakers with their triangle, those sort of ball control system offenses, even the stuff that Greg Popovich has run for years in San Antonio, those things are more and more giving way to the vast up-tempo game, the pace and space that's known today. We really don't know where the balance in all this is going to reside. It'll be interesting to see because, one of the last system basketball guys is Greg Popovich in San Antonio, and he's obviously much closer to the end of his career than any other part of it.
Exactly. Yeah, he's one of those guys the last couple of years, him and a lot of his team, where we're like, well, is this the last year for him? And then, of course, they have success, but not as much as they want, and then they keep coming back. Do you feel, how much influence, speaking of that, did Phil Jackson have on Kobe's career?
Well, Phil Jackson and Kobe were at great odds for much of their time together, and it finally erupted in their breaking up that relationship. My book is really about the things that Kobe did to be successful, and then he basically destroyed his career and then managed to rebuild it when Phil came back to the team, and the Lakers got Pau Gasol in 2007. But, prior to that, Phil would not even so much as take a meeting with Kobe. He reserved everything for Shaquille O'Neal. And Phil's longtime assistant coach, Tex Winter, favored Kobe. They had quite a standoff on the Lakers staff over this. Phil many times had contemplated or articulated trading Kobe, but the thing that held that together to a degree was Phil's appreciation for Kobe's tremendous competitiveness. But, Kobe came to the NBA having faced a tremendous amount of manipulation. His family had manipulated him. They needed the money. When he signed his contract with Sonny Vaccaro and Adidas right out of high school for millions, he said, "Mr. Vaccaro, is there any way my parents could have this money and I could play college ball?" And so, there's this image of Kobe Bryant as this guy demanding to go to the Lakers and this brash, confident guy. But the narrative's different. The amazing thing is Kobe has never even bothered to correct the narrative. But it was Adidas that set up the thing in L.A. That wasn't a demand of Kobe's. It was Adidas that told him he was the next Jordan. And, a teenager suddenly who has worked that hard to be that good suddenly shaves his head and starts adding the Jordan mannerisms. And, it created a terribly negative environment for Kobe. And when Phil Jackson came along, Kobe was eager to be. I was rebounding free throws for Kobe in the Forum in '99 when he told me he was eager to be, out of the blue, just told me he was eager to be coached by Tex Winter. He didn't say Phil Jackson, he said Tex Winter. And of course I said, well, I can set it up for you. Tex was still an assistant coach with the Bulls, and I said, I can set it up for you to talk with Tex, and that sort of began their relationship on the phone. But Kobe got rid of his parents, his family. He threw them out of his life on the eve of the 2001 playoffs. He got rid of his shoe company, Adidas. He got rid of his agent who had put him in L.A. He got rid of Phil Jackson eventually. He got rid of Shaq. He was charged with sexual assault in Colorado. He had a circumstance far worse perhaps than Tiger Woods. Yet somehow he was able to recover from all of that.
You mentioned about him regretting not playing college ball. Is it a would it have been a sure thing that if he would have played college ball, he would have been at Duke?
Well, his father was an assistant coach at LaSalle and had all these commitments from a tremendous level of talent of people to come play at LaSalle with Kobe. But that depended on Joe, making his way to the head coaching job there. And that wasn't going to happen for a time. Joe had hopes of that. And so Kobe probably could have ended up at LaSalle, where Joe Bryant himself played college ball. There were a variety of places he liked. He enjoyed that. But then things like going to a recruiting trip to see Rick Pitino in Kentucky, he refused to do it. His high school coach made the trip instead. But I think Kobe was enough of a competitor when it became clear that his family was steering him toward the NBA. Kobe was ready to step. He was not going to say, "I don't want to do this." He took on that charge. Now later, he would sit in his car at Southern Cal or UCLA, watching students when he was a lost and lonely kid with the Lakers. Sort of lamenting or wondering what his life would have been like if he had gone to college. There is a big irony here. I'm sorry to talk in these long takes,
No,
but
it's great.
Tex Winter said that the irony often compared Michael and Kobe. He coached them in the the coaching staff was fascinated with the comparisons. But the big comparison, the irony is Kobe endeavored, and really just laid it all on the line to try to be the greatest player ever. And the one thing that kept him from not being as good as Jordan, Tex Winter said, was that Jordan spent 3 years at North Carolina in that very controlled offense. And that was not the case with Kobe. Of course, he had to go right from being this high school star right into the NBA, and that lack of experience in a team system was really something that Kobe, although Michael and Kobe both struggled with team versus individual issues, as Tex Winter said, every game night. It was a thing that made a bigger gulf for Kobe to overcome. The irony being that turning pro out of high school played a role in him maybe ultimately not achieving his goal. Although 5 championships, 18-time All-Star, all of those many things, Kobe was fortunate to achieve during his career.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. It's hard to argue against the success that he had with the Lakers and just how dominant of a player that he was.
Yes. And so, he's a fascinating character study, as was Michael Jordan when I wrote Michael Jordan to Life. And I don't really think we understand these people until you really go deep into the family equation and look at the relationships and how those things unfold. And so it's always complex, and that's the fun part of my doing these books.
Who do you feel is worth covering next?
I'm so burned out from the Kobe book. I'm struggling over that. I'm 65 years old, and at times my agent is, I always work from a list to narrow the ideas, and I've taken about a year and a half off since I finished the Kobe book. My sister died the day it was finished, and so it's been a difficult time because she was ill. I didn't realize how ill. But now I'm starting to recover from the burnout. I did a lot of work for the past decade, and I just got to the point where I was too burned out to proceed. But I'm back coaching again. I'm having some fun, and sometime in the next few months I'll decide if I'm going to write again. I am sort of leaning toward a couple of projects, but I don't know which one yet.
Who would you like to thank for your success with the books?
Pardon?
Who would you like to thank? Like, who helped you with the books?
Oh, the list of people, all of these people who have granted me these interviews and taken the time to delve into their stories and offer their understanding. All these elderly black farmers down on the coastal plain of North Carolina who explained they were Jordans, and they explained their family and Michael's family to me. And the people in Philadelphia who took the time to explain the complex Bryant family story, and all the people who talked to me about Jerry West and the evolution of his career in high school, which was a fascinating tale of its own. And the same for Jordan. I mean, all of these stories are fascinating and profound, these intense competitors. And so these are things where people tell their stories. I've got to do my next interview. He's calling now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've got a ton of these. I could talk to you all day long because you're a great interviewer, but I got to grab this.
Why, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to have you wrap up with saying where can they find more about you in the book on social media?
I'm at Lazenby on Twitter, and the book is in Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and stores everywhere.
Excellent. Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
See ya.